much. We're just waiting a second for everybody to come in, and then we'll start our session. Okay, great. And so just to let you know, this session is going to be in English and French. You have the interpretation through the headphones, and I think you have to press on channel 1 for French, channel 1 for French, and 0 for English. And 0 for English, okay. So just for you to know, because we have Cécile, who is online, unfortunately wasn't able to be here with us today, although we tried everything we could. But Cécile is with us, and she will also be speaking in French. So we wanted to make sure that there is interpretation for everybody for this session. So we will be talking about the global level today, and more specifically about the monitoring of the implementation of the 2021 UNESCO Recommendation on Open Science. So we have an excellent panel with us today, online and here in the room. People who were involved in the monitoring process from different countries. And also we have Ismail Raffles, who is at Leiden University, holds the UNESCO chair, also to give us some perspective on monitoring when it comes to the monitoring of the implementation of the recommendation, and what kind of principles we have to take into consideration, and what are kind of the next steps there as well. But to start the session, I'm going to ask my colleague Rania Sabo to first give us a little overview of the monitoring of the recommendation. I do have to tell you that we are still looking through all the reports that we have received. We have to prepare a report that we are going to give to our member states for the next executive board, which is taking place in October. So these are by no means comprehensive results. It's really just to give you an idea of what is in the reports that we have received, and a little bit what the procedures have been, what the background was, to give you an idea of where we currently are. But this, the information that is contained in these reports is really very, very rich, and it will take us some time to really analyze, to understand what exactly we have in different countries, and how to kind of look at that information from different perspectives. So I'll stop here, and I'll pass the floor to Rania for her presentation. Go ahead, Rania.
Thank you, Anna, for the introduction, and welcome back, everyone. I think that we're gathered here at UNESCO, so it's only perfect that we discuss the UNESCO recommendation on open science. So just to give you a kind of a bit of a background on UNESCO standard setting instruments. So the standard setting instrument mandate is actually established within the UNESCO Constitution. And we have three main types. So we have the conventions, the recommendations, and the declarations. And with regards to the recommendations, they're tools designed to guide national laws implementation locally. So at UNESCO, we have 37 recommendations. And as you can see, only 2 of them are related to science. And one of those is the UNESCO recommendation on open science. So this recommendation was quite important because it provides a globally agreed upon framework and definition of open science, and it was adopted in 2021 by our UNESCO member states during the 41st General Conference. So I'm aware that you're all very much aware and familiar with the recommendation, but just to give you kind of a refresher and a reminder of the definition of open science within the recommendation. So it defines open science as a construct that combines various movements and practices, as you can see in the diagram behind me, that includes or covers 4 elements broadly on open scientific knowledge, infrastructure, engagement with societal actors, and open dialogue. So, why is this consultation a major milestone at the moment for the implementation of the recommendation? It's because member states are actually are required to report on UNESCO recommendations every 4 years. So this marks the first consolidated report on the implementation of the recommendation of open science. These collected reports will be used as official reports from these member states, which will allow us to assess it on a global and regional level. And finally, this information will feed into the second Open Science Outlook, which will look more in depth in the policy aspect of the monitoring, and also into the UNESCO Global Observatory, known as GOSPEN. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the reporting timeline. So we started with the deadline of designating a focal point for the reporting in July 2024. And throughout that, UNESCO provided training session to guide the focal points on addressing the survey. And since then, the deadline for submitting the reports was actually in February 2025, and then was extended until March. As Anna mentioned, we're currently working on compiling a summary report for our member states for their executive board in October. That will also go later to the General Conference in November as well. So how was this questionnaire developed? So it was based on the 7 key action areas in the recommendation, as you can read them behind me. And we were also used our monitoring framework working group, who also helped develop this and included over 70 open science stakeholders from various regions. So this is the first snapshot of what we have so far. So far we've received 77 reports. As you can see in the map, it's quite a good distribution, regional distribution, with Europe and North America having the highest number of responding rate, followed by Africa, Arab states, then by Asia and the Pacific. And lastly, the least represented group would be Latin America and the Caribbean. So our member states did use mainly ministries to develop this consolidated report. As you can see, Ministry of Education, Science, Technology, Innovation Policy, and in some cases, Foreign Affairs. Often these consultations did use multi-stakeholder involvement, including nonprofits, private sector, public sector, and other stakeholders. So I will now quickly go through some of the key insights. I will not overwhelm you by reading a lot of data, so I'll just quickly go through them. The first action area, we see that actually there has been quite a lot of positive response when it comes to promoting the recommendation nationally. And we've actually found out that currently the recommendation is available in 21 languages. So when it comes to action area 2 on policy, so many countries already have science, technology, innovation policies in place, but we've established that only 28 member states, highlighting the map in front of you, actually include all elements of open science within their strategy policies or frameworks. The most common being open access in general, and then the least common is the dialogue with other knowledge systems. So when it comes to infrastructures, so most countries report that having some form of national or institutional infrastructures in place. But however, fewer countries are actively participating in regional or international infrastructure initiatives. So we can see that there's the foundation that really needs to be kind of scaled up further. So when it comes to action number 4 on capacity building, so the majority of countries are investing in open science training, especially when it comes to universities and research institutions. However, we see that there is a gap when it comes to training of the policymakers. So moving on to action area number 5, which on open science culture, we can see that countries are actually rethinking how they're evaluating researchers and looking beyond the traditional metrics. And some of them have actually already launched recognition initiatives. When it comes to innovation and open science approaches, so we looked here at how countries incorporate open science into their full research cycle and into international collaboration. And as we can see, there is definitely a lot of promising work in this area. And finally, the final area of action, international collaboration. We've observed that many countries don't have formal strategies in place at the moment. So this is a very clear area for growth and of interest, I think, to the open science community globally. So beyond the action areas, we've actually also assessed the barriers that member states might be facing when it comes to implementing the recommendation. And from that, we've identified a couple of areas. And I think we will hear, it will be very interesting to hear from the focal points with us on their lived experience on this point. So we've identified some of the barriers that financial constraints, infrastructure gaps, and limited human capacity. And then there's also the border policy and regulatory hurdles were also addressed. In some cases, geopolitical challenges and concerns on intellectual property and research security. So what's next? As Anna mentioned, we've only just started and we've only prepared so far kind of a summary or a brief analysis. In 2026, we will be launching the second edition of the Open Science Outlook, and that will really include a more comprehensive analysis of these reports with more focus on policy. Another point would be is that all these some of these examples from these reports will be used to feed into our open and inclusive hub, science hub, that you can also use to submit some practices if you wish. So before I finish, I would just like to give a shout out to our working groups. So we have 5 working groups on open science, and more specifically, I would like to highlight the working group on monitoring framework. So I've already mentioned that they've been a big part in developing this questionnaire. And then for that also, UNESCO has been really heavily involved in promoting and developing the principle of open science from monitoring initiative that we have seen yesterday. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. And I wish that you enjoyed the following discussion and to hear actually the experiences of the focal point on compiling their reports. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rania. As you pointed out, we are kind of starting to look into this report, starting to see what is inside, and we are very happy to have here with us people who actually worked as focal points on these reports. So I will very briefly introduce my panelists here today, and we'll let them also introduce themselves more in detail, and also providing some information about how they are related to open science and how come they were the ones kind of chosen to be the focal points for their respective countries. But I have here, so Ahmed Mohamed Alabdukader, sorry for the misinterpretation, advisor to His Excellency the President from the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. Cécile Coulibaly, online with us, Deputy Director in charge of Research Training and Research Unit at the Virtual University of Côte d'Ivoire. Ismael Raffles Garcia, as I said, the UNESCO Chair in Diversity and Inclusion in Global Science from the Leiden University. And Ms. Huang, who is the Deputy Director of Open Science Research Center, National Science Library at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. I'm also very happy to have here from Indonesia somebody who was included in the reporting. So we might also get to you for some of the questions, because we would like to also hear what the process was in Indonesia as well. So this was a good thing to hear that you're here as well. So I will maybe just start with a question for all of the panelists to just walk us through a little bit how your country approached the monitoring of the recommendation, what were the coordination mechanisms that were put in place, how come you or your organization were also kind of chosen as the focal point, and how the whole process evolved. So I'll start with you, please.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the introduction. It's a very good morning to all of you, my dear distinguished delegates and colleagues. It's an honor, actually, to begin by expressing my appreciation and thanks to UNESCO for convening this important and timely event. And of course, I'm grateful for this opportunity to join the forces, to exchange perspectives, to share experiences, and to contribute to the collective effort to monitor and to advance the implementation of the Open Science Recommendation. As regard to your question, it's actually worth mentioning that open science is gaining a momentum in Saudi Arabia as part of its global ambition to become a leader, a global champion, and a regional leader in science, technology, and innovation, and in line with the Saudi Vision 2030. In the context of Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia has taken a structured and collaborative approach to monitor the implementation of 2021 UNESCO Recommendation on Open Science. The effort has been led by King Abdullah City for Science and Technology through a multi-institutional coordination framework. The process began by the establishment of a dedicated subject matter experts working group tasked to analyze the recommendation of the UNESCO and to identify the most effective monitoring approach, in addition to ensuring alignment and coordination with the national stakeholders to deliver unified national responses. On this occasion, I would like I'm honored actually to introduce two of my colleagues here with me, the two distinguished subject matter experts during this meeting, Professor Hassan Al-Ayed, if you just raise your hand okay, and Mr. Abdullah Al-Khalid. Thank you very much for the unwavering commitment and leadership throughout the monitoring process. The second step, actually, we actually have we made or launched a stakeholder engagement campaign reaching out to approximately up to 100 national organizations across the public, private, civil societies, semi-government, civil and non-profit organizations to ensure their alignments and active involvement in the monitoring process. And to support the data collection, the UNESCO survey tool was reinstated as the primary instrument, to enable the standardized collection of data. And the collected data then underwent a rigorous process of review, analysis, and verification by the working group to ensure its accuracy and reliability. This 6-month effort led to the successful submission of Saudi Arabia first national report to the UNESCO, making a significant step forward in our commitment to advancing the open science at all levels. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. And just a very quick follow-up question. Was it difficult to bring everybody together? And the conversations, was it easy to talk to each other? Did people understand each other and understood what the point of the recommendation is, what open science is, or did you need a little bit of time to kind of get everybody on the same page?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, yeah, I absolutely agree with you that time limitation was a concern for us. But what we did actually, we already actually started the process by identifying the key stakeholders, okay, and then directly communicated with the top officials in this organization, and we requested at that time to nominate candidates from each stakeholder organization to represent the organization in the survey, and then we moved to the next step by having a bilateral meeting with almost all the candidates, and also we hold them in a workshop to inform them about the rules and responsibility and expectation from the stakeholders to implement or to complete the implementation process for the kingdom. Of course, we touch based on the importance of to achieve this this national effort to reflect the, let's say, the value and the position of Saudi Arabia in the whole ecosystem. That's actually what made the process not as easy as expected, but it's not challenging.
Great, thank you very much. And it's over, if I think we saw around 50 institutions that actually were kind of brought together. So really an impressive effort that was done in Saudi Arabia. Great, thank you for that. Moving to China. Ms. Huang, can you tell us a little bit about the process that was followed in China?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. It's my great honor to be here. I really do some homework on this panel discussion. Because monitoring open science is of great importance of China. Since the 1990s, the Chinese scientific community has actively promoted the sharing of scientific data. In recent years, China has seen notable progress in areas such as open access, open data, open infrastructure, and open science policy, fostering a favorable environment for the development of open science. To monitor open science, China has taken the following key actions. The first is on monitoring mechanisms supported by the Chinese Academy of Sciences, CAS, and the National Natural Science Foundation of China. Since 2022, the National Science Library of CAS has annually collected the open science practice cases from across the Chinese scientific community. Each year, around about, I think, 140 cases are gathered. These cases are reviewed and mapped to the 7 action areas outlined in the UNESCO's Recommendation on Open Science. The results show that Chinese open science practice cover all 7 action areas. In 2025, the Minister of Science and Technology of China took the lead in international cooperation on open science, including the current round on open science monitoring and on the action plan for open science in China. The third is on monitoring serials and tools. Today and yesterday, someone said some monitoring tools. A project funded by CAS developed an Open Science Readiness Index, OSRI, to assess the level of open science readiness in different countries and regions. A preliminary monitoring materials platform platform has been built to track open science progress in China and select 8 countries and regions. According to this index, China currently ranks 3rd in terms of open science readiness. The third for Chinese actions is on the international exchange of maturing results. Since 2022, the Open Science International Forums have been held annually as part of the Zhongguancun Forum, co-hosted by the Minister of Science and Technology of China, CAS, and the Beijing government. In 2024, China, together with South Africa, Brazil, and the African Union, jointly launched the Initiative on International Cooperation in Open Science, which aim to promote global scientific and technological innovation to benefit the global south. Notable, in 2021, China officially included promoting open science in its national law, the revised law on scientific and technological progress, which came into effect in 2022. That's all, Anna.
Great, thank you very much. And I think it would, in the report, there was indeed a lot of effort that was put in place to do the survey, and in particular to report on all the different types of international collaborations which have been put in place between China and a variety of different countries. So that's also going to be something interesting for us to analyze and see also what is happening in other countries as well. The readiness assessment, the Open Science Readiness Index or assessment tool, it's also something of interest. It might be good to have a look at it, if it's somehow can be made available also in English, so that we can see if it's something that the countries might wish to look into, particularly those countries who really are starting with their open science initiatives as well. So thank you very much for that. Rania also already reported that what we were kind of very interested in is to see, yes, some countries have their separate open science policies, some countries have their open access policies, but many countries actually revise their national science, technology, innovation policies, even laws, to introduce the principles of open science as in, and the Chinese example is also very interesting in that effect as well. So again, thank you very much for that. And we're going to move now to Côte d'Ivoire. Cécile, je ne sais pas si vous nous entendez. We should have her online. Cécile Koulibaly. Oui. Hello, Cécile. Can
Oui,
you...
je suis là. Bonjour à tous. Alors, je n'ai pas accès à la caméra, mais je pense que je peux vous entendre ma voix.
Oui,
Voilà.
oui, on vous entend très, très bien.
OK, merci à
et merci
tous.
d'être avec nous.
Oui, je voudrais commencer en disant merci au comité, au comité Sciences ouvertes de l'UNESCO, qui a vraiment tout fait pour que je puisse venir à Paris. Mais malheureusement, ça n'a pas été possible. Je pense que la prochaine fois, ce sera fait. Et je voudrais également dire merci à toutes les entités de l'UNESCO qui nous ont aidés à produire ce rapport. Je parlerai d'abord du bureau de Anna Persic elle-même qui s'est impliquée, du bureau UNESCO Dakar avec Cornelia, du bureau UNESCO Abidjan et de la Commission nationale UNESCO et de la délégation permanente de la Côte d'Ivoire auprès de l'UNESCO à Paris. Nous avons été vraiment encadrés et nous sommes contents de vous partager quelques-unes de nos expériences. Et je dirais que notre coordination se situe à 3 niveaux. Voilà, parce qu'avant la signature de la recommandation de l'UNESCO en 2021 sur la science ouverte, nous étions déjà engagés dans une activité de promotion du libre accès. Voilà, donc il y a trois phases. La promotion du libre accès que nous avons commencé en 2016 avec l'initiative de la bibliothèque virtuelle de l'enseignement supérieur et de la recherche scientifique de Côte d'Ivoire, qui est une initiative lancée par le ministre de l'époque. Et puis, nous avons continué également pour animer, pour coordonner. Nous avons continué avec l'Open Access Week qui a été initié par l'université virtuelle à laquelle je suis rattachée comme institution. Et l'Open Access Week, pour nous, c'était une plateforme de promotion du libre accès. Et ensuite, surtout le Green Open Access pour mobiliser les ressources pour alimenter la bibliothèque virtuelle, également sensibiliser, faire du plaidoyer auprès de toutes les entités qui constituent l'enseignement supérieur en leur montrant l'intérêt de la visibilité de la production scientifique. Nous avons également, après la signature de la recommandation de 2021, il y a eu également un atelier national assez intéressant avec le Fonds STI. Le Fonds STI, c'est le Fonds pour la science et la technologie et l'innovation en Côte d'Ivoire qui finance des projets de recherche. Voilà. Et nous avons également poursuivi avec certaines activités, notamment avec certains partenariats avec le WACREN et IFL pour mettre en place une politique institutionnelle de sciences ouvertes. Et nous avons même commencé une ébauche de politique de sciences ouvertes au niveau national qui n'est pas encore aboutie. Et nous espérons qu'avec le travail mené, nous avons beaucoup plus de personnes maintenant pour aller plus loin. Et nous avons également eu la chance d'avoir le WACREN en 2022, organisé en Côte d'Ivoire, autour de cette conférence du WACREN en 2022, qui était focalisée sur la science ouverte. Nous avons organisé le symposium national sur la science ouverte, vraiment avec tout l'accompagnement du ministère de l'enseignement supérieur et de la recherche scientifique. Et ensuite, notre coordination de la bibliothèque virtuelle nous a permis de constater l'intérêt pour les identifiants persistants. Et depuis 2023, nous travaillons à promouvoir l'utilisation et l'intégration des identifiants persistants, tant l'utilisation par les enseignants-chercheurs et comme sur nos plateformes de données de recherche, les publications, etc. Donc, la phase 3 pour nous, voilà, je ne sais pas si je dois donner d'autres détails, mais je préfère aller pour gagner en temps. La phase 3 pour nous, ça a été la consultation nationale. La consultation nationale a vraiment affermi nos liens avec toutes les institutions qui participaient déjà à nos activités et même celles qui ne participaient pas encore. Et nous avons pu avoir des contacts avec de nombreuses institutions. Habituellement, nous arrivions à atteindre 15 à 20 institutions, mais pendant le rapport national, nous sommes allés jusqu'à 28 institutions avec des ministères associés. Alors, qu'est-ce que nous avons fait au cours de ce travail de coordination du rapport national? Je l'ai signifié tout à l'heure, le bureau UNESCO s'est pleinement engagé à nos côtés. Voilà, après notre désignation comme point focal national, le bureau UNESCO nous a soutenus fortement. Nous avons organisé 2 ateliers nationaux. Le premier atelier, c'était pour le lancement des travaux de consultation et qui a rassemblé 64 participants avec des leaders politiques, des décideurs académiques, etc. Il y a eu des points focaux également. Ensuite, nous avons demandé aux institutions de nous confirmer ces points focaux et avec la désignation de ces points focaux institutionnels, nous avons lancé nous avons lancé une série de formations de sensibilisation. Parce que pour nous, les points focaux, il fallait leur montrer l'intérêt du questionnaire, l'intérêt de la recommandation de l'UNESCO sur la science ouverte de 2021. Ce n'était pas évident au niveau de compréhension. Et donc, des sessions, nous avons organisé au moins 5 sessions de formation et avec un questionnaire national, nous avons pu collecter des données et il y a eu également un atelier de restitution des travaux au cours duquel nous avons présenté ce que nous avons recueilli comme données et il y a eu des discussions bien encadrées par le ministère de l'Enseignement supérieur, la Commission nationale, le bureau UNESCO également à Abidjan. Et, excusez-moi. Et puis, à la suite, nous avons essayé de traiter les données et de communiquer le rapport. Il faut dire que la période d'extension du rapport nous a aidés parce que vraiment, nous avons eu beaucoup de pression. Nous avons commencé seulement le 6 février au cours d'un atelier et le 26 février, nous faisons l'atelier de restitution. Donc vraiment, il y avait beaucoup de pression, mais il y avait beaucoup d'enthousiasme. Et l'approche que nous avons utilisée vraiment, c'était la collaboration et l'information, la sensibilisation. Nous nous sommes rendus disponibles pour former, informer à tout moment les collègues qui avaient été désignés pour pouvoir recueillir les données. Donc, il y a eu de la sensibilisation, du plaidoyer et de la formation. Voilà, pour la première question, nous pouvons nous arrêter là.
Super, merci, merci beaucoup, Cécile. I think what was really interesting for me in the case of Côte d'Ivoire was this combination of consultation and capacity building and awareness raising. So it was at the same time a process of monitoring, but it was also a process of training and capacity building and just kind of bringing people together, understanding better what open science is, what the different parts are, how do we do that, who are the different players in the region, infrastructure kind of institution, WACREN, that is in place in that area was also very, very important in terms of providing some of those trainings. So we kind of brought together not just the stakeholders who were important to report on the recommendation, but also those who are there to support the implementation of open science even more broadly. So I might leave the questions for Ismail for the end of the discussion and go back to our different countries and maybe ask just a question around some of the main challenges. What were the main challenges that you saw during this process? What are the parts of the recommendation or the parts of open science that were a little bit difficult to talk about, think about, and report on? Please, go ahead, yes.
Once again, thank you very much, Anna, for the question. Of course, the monitoring process has been envisaged many or encountered actually many challenges. Just to highlight some of them. First challenge that we face during the monitoring process is the data fragmentation. Of course, it was a major issue as national institutions varied in their capacity to track open science activities in the absence of a standardized mechanism for aggregating data. This is maybe the major issue that we faced. The other issue actually we faced also the lack of standardized indicators for open science practices. For example, while we could measure the open access publication, it was really difficult to quantify data reuse, citizen science participation, and societal impact. Awareness gap is among the most also challenging issue that we face, as some of the stakeholder might not be mature enough to understand the issue of open sciences and about its scope. From the coordination perspectives, working with about 100 national organization, including public, private, semi-public, civil societies, and non-profit organization, was a very complex task actually for us. Of course, ensuring consistency in responses and alignment with the national priorities and the international standards require careful planning and facilitation. In my perspective, actually, the two areas of the implementation was a little bit more challenging for us. The first is about the promoting a common understanding of open science and the associated benefits and challenges, as well as the diverse paths to open science. And the other one is the recommendation about promoting innovative approaches for science at different stages of the scientific process. It's really difficult for us to measure these two activities or areas, but we did our best, and of course collecting the available information and make it available in the report. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I think these feedbacks are also important for us and for the next round of reporting, just to see where, as we were saying yesterday about the OSMI principles, if some of those questions are difficult to report on, maybe we should change the questions also a little bit so that it can be more easy to report for the countries. But I think what was very important for us and for the recommendation is to say open science is not about having access to the outcomes of science, to the products of science, to the publications, even data and others. It really is about opening the entire process of science as well. So with some of these more tricky questions, it was really to kind of challenge the countries and say, okay, so what has changed institutionally so that you can actually have the culture of open science in place in different countries. So we'll have to have a closer look also at your responses to those questions. Ms. Huang, from Chinese perspective.
Open science has already, I think in some sense, become a widely recognized trend in China. Especially in the scientific community, they have strong consensus on open science. For example, in response to UNESCO's Science Decade Strategy, the Chinese scientific community has submitted several proposals or plans in support of open science. Based on our experience, the process of collecting open science data, case studies, or organizing national level discussion, I think has not encountered major difficulties. But however, through this process, we have identified several structural challenges that deserve attention. While open science is acknowledged as a key policy topic by the Ministry of Science and Technology of China, there is currently no dedicated national body responsible for its overall coordination. The pillars of open science, such as open access to publicly funded research outputs, standards for open data sharing, and international cooperation on large-scale facilities, are being promoted by different institutions. However, those efforts remain fragmented and lack unified coordination. When mapping China's open science practices to the 7 action areas outlined in UNESCO's recommendation on open science, we found fewer cases in action Area 6 and Area 7. This may reflect both conceptual ambiguity and practical challenges of implementation in these areas. In Action Area 6, the integration of open knowledge, data, software, and hardware with real-world scientific research problems and workflows remains limited. Greater engagement from the scientific community is needed to bridge this gap. in China, the scientific community in the geography are now working on the AI-empowered autonomy open science platform. In Action Area 7, open science infrastructure holds significant potential to help bridge global contact in digital access, technology and knowledge. However, advancing international cooperation in this area still require broader consensus and more cooperation, such as in the technology and the standards. We're now working with the colleagues of East Asia regions to serve on the design and the delivery of mapping open science infrastructure and interoperability practices in East Asia. And we also signed a corporate MOU with OpenAI to promote the interoperability between different infrastructures from different countries or the regions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it kind of brings us back to the question that was asked before around, what about more collaboration in different regions, including in Asia. So it would be good to kind of take up on this discussion and continue in the future. From Indonesia, maybe, do you want to share a little bit about the process of the survey, filling of the survey and the monitoring? Please go ahead.
Yeah, maybe a little bit because this survey was sent like 1 year before, right? So we try to identify who's gonna be the stakeholders that can accommodate the questions to answer the questions, and what we find is everything is silos. Like every initiative from top down and bottom up is not interconnected well. But somehow we try, that's the reason we try to gather them and we try to build the discussions, the dialogue. And everyone has sharing that we, with that dialogue, we can identify what's the gaps, things that we need to support from the government, for example. And what we realize is a language barrier as well about increasing the awareness. I think from the community we need to, from the government and also grassroots communities need to increase the awareness, like translating maybe in Indonesia or building the discussions. And what I can, relates to Rania's presentations, the most common topics is open access. So we do have infrastructures that support that, monitoring the open access cases, and also the knowledge discussions, like how can we build the open access science actors to build that discussions around the topic. So that's what I can summarize. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's also a big country, so absolutely it is difficult to reach out to all the institutions and everybody who is involved. So thanks so much for the effort. Cecile, back to you, and my question around the main challenges and what are the most difficult parts to report on.
Merci. La première difficulté que nous avons rencontrée, nous n'avons pas été totalement surprises parce que nous nous sommes dit, mais en parlant de libre accès, de sciences ouvertes depuis 2018, pourquoi il y a encore de nombreux enseignants-chercheurs, des professionnels dans les universités qui ne connaissent pas le concept de sciences ouvertes? Malheureusement pour nous, nous nous sommes rendus compte qu'on a encore besoin de travailler cette question de la connaissance de la science ouverte, qui est un grand défi. Et tous ceux qui ont participé aux sessions de formation en ligne arrivaient à comprendre. Certains décideurs même nous ont avoué que réellement, ils n'avaient pas une bonne connaissance du concept de la science ouverte. Et nous pensons que c'est un grand défi à relever parce que nous ne sommes pas au même niveau d'information. C'est vrai, moi, je suis dans une université qui est numérique, qui utilise les technologies, mais il y a encore des universités qui ne sont pas très numériques et qui ne comprennent pas certaines terminologies que nous utilisons dans le domaine de la science ouverte. Donc, il y a beaucoup d'efforts à faire à ce niveau. Il y a également, à côté du concept, nous nous sommes rendus compte également il faut faire beaucoup de plaidoyer, de sensibilisation, de formation. Voilà, je crois que ça rejoint le premier point, mais il faut également poursuivre les initiatives déjà lancées. Je prends l'exemple du projet ORCID. J'ai vu que lorsqu'on commençait, il y avait à peine 300-400 enseignants-chercheurs qui avaient un identifiant ORCID, mais il y a 3 semaines, j'ai regardé, nous sommes passés à 2000. Alors, je me dis, si nous continuons la sensibilisation, le plaidoyer, non seulement on va faire comprendre ce que c'est que la science ouverte, mais également on va pouvoir améliorer les pratiques de science ouverte. Mais pour ce faire, il nous faut une organisation en Côte d'Ivoire. Voilà, c'est vrai, il y a le FONSTI qui a fait un atelier. Il y a l'Université virtuelle de Côte d'Ivoire qui a également fait une série d'activités. Bon, on se rend compte encore qu'on est faiblement implanté en matière de sciences ouvertes. Les pratiques sont un peu distantes. Bon, on n'a pas le temps de montrer les graphiques qui sont dans le rapport. Sinon, vous allez voir que par rapport aux principes à respecter, il y a beaucoup d'écarts. Et il y a des chercheurs ou des points focaux, puisque ce sont les points focaux qui ont renseigné les formulaires. Il y a des points focaux qui ne comprenaient pas certaines petites rubriques, même du questionnaire. Donc, il y a encore du travail. Donc, pour nous, il est question également de relever les défis des politiques institutionnelles. Parce que les politiques institutionnelles, dans leur mode de mise en place, va peut-être permettre une collaboration entre bibliothécaires, chercheurs, décideurs, etc., pour une meilleure compréhension et pour aller ensemble pour des politiques institutionnelles. C'est vrai que la politique de la recherche actuellement en cours intègre certains éléments de la science ouverte, mais nous avons regardé un peu, il y a besoin de pouvoir renforcer pour vraiment mettre en place la visibilité des principes de la science ouverte. Et c'est tant d'autres éléments. Et je dirais qu'il y a un autre défi, il n'y a pas d'organe de coordination nationale. Voilà, pourquoi ne pas responsabiliser les institutions qui sont pleinement engagées, telles que l'université virtuelle, dans la mise en œuvre de certaines activités. Nous ne disons pas que nous avons des résultats faramineux, mais au moins nous essayons de comprendre, nous essayons d'avancer et puis soutenir ces activités ou avoir une coordination nationale avec des prises de décision. Nous avons également vu que les enseignants, les points focaux revenaient avec des questions du financement de la recherche et des réticences pour certains enseignants, des problèmes de revues scientifiques, les APC et autres. C'était autant de défis à relever. Et nous nous disons que nous ne sommes peut-être qu'au départ de la mise en œuvre de la science ouverte. En Côte d'Ivoire, il y a encore beaucoup de choses à faire, mais nous ouvrir également à la collaboration internationale comme nous le faisons déjà avec l'IRD, avec le WACREN, dans le cadre de l'IPSENS, avec l'African Open Science Platform et puis également avec bien d'autres institutions si elles peuvent venir nous renforcer en termes de capacité pour relever certains défis. Nous avons besoin de continuer et de renforcer ces initiatives. Merci.
Thank you very much, Cecile. And indeed, there is a lot to do in all the countries. I don't really know one country that has done everything right and that has been able to integrate all these principles of open science in their open science or science policies in general. And with this question, Ismail, I'm going to go to you because we've heard from all of our speakers the difficulties, there are several. One is also the absence of a body that can coordinate open science, but most importantly is how do you integrate these principles, values of open science in the recommendation, in the national strategies? So from your perspective, as a UNESCO chair on diversity and equality, what are some of the possible mechanisms that we could actually propose to countries?
Well, I think we should start by recognizing the importance of the UNESCO Open Science recommendations in bringing values to the force. So it's not just about making the knowledge openly available. Following from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Article 27, so we want this knowledge to be a public good, and we want any citizen in the world, any person in the world to be able to contribute with his knowledge, the same way that we have the right to culture and art. And this is something that was not, before the UNESCO recommendation, discussed. And interestingly, the way open science, particularly open access, has evolved, with an emphasis in APCs, which has excluded many people in many regions, including Europe, from publishing, the importance of the values has come back as a key issue. Now, I think what we usually do, academics, is to put problems on the table rather than solving them. So you will allow me this little exercise of sharing the problems that we have. So equity, inclusiveness, diversity are not single things. They are general ethical principles. So it's not that there is going to be a silver bullet solution. And they need to be looked dimension by dimension and context by context. In the case of open access, question for all the monitors. When we count gold open access, this is, we shouldn't call it gold, we should call it pay to publish model, with all the problems that causes in terms of integrity, with all the problems that this causes in terms of inequality. Given the values of the recommendations, should we consider this open science? In the EOS Observatory, I see that you make the distinction, but actually, should this be counted as going up? Well, I don't know, but that's something that definitely we want to have it discussed. On the positive side, we could say that there have been national initiatives, national policies, such as in Norway, where there have been support for diamond journals that will publish in the local language, Norwegian, so that Norway would preserve its knowledge and the accessibility of that knowledge to the local population. And that's something that, for example, our colleagues in Claxo, I think Rania isn't here, so our colleagues in Latin America has also been working. So equity in terms of access, it's a whole discussion. Equity in terms of research contents. We know that there is a huge bias in clinical studies in terms of gender and ethnic minorities. So the type of exercise that was mentioned about clinical trials, I don't know who was mentioning it, in controlling, actually, and that's policing, actually. I think that this should be policing because it's a right policing that clinical studies consider the gender and ethnic minority dimension is something that is a part of equity, another dimension. Another dimension would be research assessment. And it's more general, but it's a dimension in which a reform might have effects in multiple issues on equity. But the point that I would make here, and this follows on from the discussions we're having yesterday with Tony Ross-Hallowell in the Pathos context is that the dimension in which science have had more societal impact and that open science has shown to have more societal impact is in terms of engagement, participation. And given that science is extremely unequal and the benefits to science in society are extremely unequal, participation might be a way to partly address it. When I say that science is very unequal in its research content, I mean how much money are we spending, or how much effort are we doing to cancer research, which would benefit older white people like myself in rich countries, in comparison to infectious diseases, in comparison to respiratory diseases, which are affecting large populations, in comparison to cardiovascular diseases, which are affecting the poor populations. Since we have such an equal content and such an equal participation in science, promoting direct dialogue between citizens, citizen organizations, a variety of societal stakeholders could be very important in terms of not addressing, like say, equity inclusiveness from the science system down, but rather the other way around, like from listening from society where science is not delivering in terms of equity and inclusion.
Great. Thank you very much. And these questions of inequity in the content of science or inequality in the content of science is also something that we've been looking at a little bit more closely lately. And we need evidence. We need data on that as well. We need to understand. I was just at this meta science conference in London last week, where there were several presentations that actually really presented some evidence about which diseases have been studied for which populations, and it absolutely makes no sense in certain countries. So it is important to talk about it, but it is also important to get the data out there and show to those who then invest in science and decide on science priorities what you can do if you could actually put the science investment somewhere else where it actually will make a difference for the populations that you are catering to. So thanks so much for that. And on the research assessment, absolutely, and we've heard a lot about it. A good thing is that in the survey that we've had, we have like 65 or 67% of countries who have responded, who says that there is some kind of research assessment reform that they are undertaking. Now we have to see what those reforms are, but hopefully they are going in the right direction, because indeed the question of the research assessment and career evaluation reform is going to be at the heart of what the new system for science is going to be. But going back to the different country representatives, what I would like to hear also is what were some opportunities that came out from the process of monitoring? What were some benefits that you saw while you were conducting also the monitoring process? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Indeed, actually, despite the challenges that we have mentioned, actually the monitoring exercise that we have for the open science revealed tremendous opportunities and unexpected benefits. Maybe one of the most important benefits that we have from this first exercise, that the monitoring process has laid a strong foundation for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the future monitoring process. So the monitoring process that we already actually has helped to identify gaps, build stronger partnerships, and move closer to a more open, collaborative, and impactful research ecosystem in Saudi Arabia in compliance with the National Vision 2030. Another actually benefits and the opportunity that we recognized from this first exercise is the improved coordination the improved coordination among the national organizations. The process brought together an institution that had previously worked in silos, okay, and such a process fostering a more unified national approach to open science. The other one is other benefit is raising awareness across sectors. Many institutions in Saudi Arabia have begun to reflect on their own open science practices and have initiated internal discussion about open access, data sharing, and research assessment reform. Also, the process brought actually another benefit that relates to the increased engagement of stakeholders in advancing open science practices, catalyzing a policy momentum. What I meant actually by this, that several entities in Saudi Arabia began drafting or updating the open science policies in Saudi Arabia. In a nutshell, the monitoring process served not only as a reporting tool for open science activities, but also as a catalyst for systematic change in Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much.
It's excellent. Thank you very much. I think from the UNESCO side, that was exactly what we were hoping to achieve with this first consultative process for the monitoring of the recommendation. So thank you very much for sharing that. Ms. Wang?
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a thought-provoking and inspiring question. During the process of submitting China's response to the questionnaire, we observed that it promoted renewed reflections across different levels and sectors, communities on the value of open science and how it will be organized. It gave fresh the momentum to China's open science efforts. Government agencies began cooperating more actively. The research community started thinking more deeply about how their open science actions contribute to the national goals and societal benefits. And even the business sector began exploring how it could engage as a meaningful stakeholder in the open science ecosystem. There are several examples. The first, the Minister of Science and Technology of China organized a team to develop the National Open Science Action Plan and conducted several times rounds on expert consultation. The Department of International Cooperation and the Minister of China has organized and participated in several international forums on open science. And in this June, the Chinese Academy of Sciences held high-level discussions with the French National Center for Scientific Research to explore the cooperation in open science. The third, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth, building on the Open Science for Open for Science Decade initiative submitted by China's scientific community to the Science Decade, CAS, Chinese Academy of Sciences, is currently developing a proposal for a national open science platform as part of its upcoming 15th five-year plan. So we can say with confidence that the number and the scale of open science initiative launched in China since the beginning of this year far exceeded those in the past 3 years. The recommendation monitoring process, we think, has acted as a catalyst, not only improving coordination, but also addressing awareness and mobilizing new stakeholders around a shared vision of open science. That's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Huang. Cécile, de votre côté, Quelles étaient les opportunités, des bénéfices de ce processus de monitoring?
Merci. Merci. La première opportunité, je pense, a été la collaboration accrue avec les instances de l'UNESCO. Vraiment, c'était pour nous une découverte de voir que nous devons vraiment intensifier nos activités en collaboration avec le bureau UNESCO, la Commission nationale et même le bureau de Dakar et toutes les instances qui sont en charge de la mise en œuvre de la recommandation. Ça, c'était la première opportunité pour nous parce que ce n'était pas évident. On travaillait à leur envoyer des invitations et maintenant nous nous sommes rendus compte qu'on peut collaborer à réaliser des programmes. Et le deuxième élément, c'est vraiment l'importance de la mise en place d'une plateforme de coordination. Voilà, la plateforme de coordination, je pense que ça, elle relève un peu des instances gouvernementales, notamment le ministère de l'Enseignement supérieur, mais il y a besoin de mettre en place cette plateforme de collaboration. Et ce qui nous a pratiquement frappé, c'est un peu la vision commune que toutes les institutions ont donnée au cours de ces rencontres et de cette collecte. Je crois qu'ils ont compris qu'il y a besoin d'avoir des politiques institutionnelles, de disposer d'une politique nationale, nous l'avons déjà dit, d'avoir des instruments de gouvernance de la science ouverte, également de mettre en place, voilà, que ce ne soit pas seulement une plateforme de coordination, mais également une plateforme en ligne où il y aura des interactions avec tout le monde et de renforcer les initiatives existantes. Ça, je l'ai déjà dit, mais surtout d'avoir des textes pour beaucoup d'équité, de transparence, etc. Élaborer une feuille de route nationale. On pense que s'il y a la coordination qui existe, elle pourra assurer les mécanismes de suivi de mise en œuvre de la suite des activités de sciences ouvertes et surtout d'intégrer les pratiques, parce que pour intégrer les pratiques de sciences ouvertes, je crois que c'est la connaissance de la science ouverte qui permettra au fur et à mesure d'intégrer les pratiques, parce que nous sommes rendus compte que dans les universités, dans les centres de recherche, certains mécanismes existent déjà de mise en œuvre au niveau des pratiques de la science ouverte, puisque aujourd'hui, tout le monde publie dans les revues où on demande certains éléments. Donc, ça existe déjà. Il suffit d'avoir une plateforme nationale et de continuer la sensibilisation, la formation, le plaidoyer pour activer certaines activités déjà commencées. Et puis, avoir une plateforme des revues scientifiques locales. Ça a été souligné parce que la visibilité de la recherche au niveau de nos pays francophones est très faible. Et tous, on est d'accord qu'il faut avoir une plateforme et voir vers quel modèle de sciences ouvertes il faut aller, de libre accès il faut aller. Ensuite, développer la collaboration nationale et internationale et développer le partenariat public-privé. Parce que généralement, les universités travaillent en marge du secteur privé alors qu'ils peuvent soutenir, la population civile également peut soutenir. Ça a été un des points faibles de notre rapport, le manque de collaboration avec la population, avec les communautés. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Cécile. One of the things that we kind of were hoping this exercise would also bring is for countries to see where the gaps are and where the real priorities are. And we see that many countries actually through this exercise said, well, the first thing we really need to do is this, and then this, and then this. And this also translates in many countries now putting in place the national open science plans. We heard it from China, we heard it now from Cécile from Côte d'Ivoire. And we see that in different countries as well. So the idea of a national action plan on open science that will build on the gaps that were identified during the monitoring process is also kind of encouraging in terms of the use of the monitoring process to prioritize action for the future of open science. And talking about these priorities in actions, and again, going back to equity and inclusion, I wanted to go back to you, Isabel, and see, from your experience, what aspects of equity and inclusion tend to be overlooked in practice, and what can member states do better, both during the monitoring but also the implementation of their open science practices?
So I will start with a general comment, and which is, in every model of science, we need to rethink how we measure or we look into science. And a very good example, I think, for an audience such as this is the case of the OECD, how the OECD in the 60s was using the Frascati manual, developed the Frascati manual, and in the 90s, when they came up with a different model of understanding innovation, the innovation systems, national systems of innovation, they developed a completely different way, which was based in surveys to look into collaborations. Now, if we say that open science is a different way of thinking of science, we need to develop different ways of measuring. And given that open science, it's much more about collaborations and interactions, this leads us to the type of efforts, like in Saudi Arabia, in involving also in Côte d'Ivoire, involving a variety of communities in rethinking how we measure it. So also the issue about equity and inclusion is something that was not previously included in measuring science, and therefore it's something that needs to be rethought. Now, which aspects of equity and inclusion have been most overlooked? I think when we've been looking at the different monitoring efforts of the 4 pillars of the UNESCO Science recommendations, which Open Science recommendations, which pillars 3 and 4, which are about participation, engagement, listening to societal needs on the one hand, and one was already mentioned by Rania, the dialogue with other knowledge systems, other aspects which do not lend themselves to the conventional economics type of monitoring. And this is why I thought it was interesting in the interventions that there were new, and also actually in the EOSC observatory, you saw that there was the proposal of doing case studies or use case, right? So the use case is a non-traditional way of monitoring, but that you thought it was important in order to see what is the benefits. This participation as a way of monitoring, it's also non-traditional. So we don't know what the monitoring system will look like, but we're already seeing that there are experiments towards doing things in different ways, with participation, with case studies, because, as I was saying before, issues around equity and inclusion are very often related to collaborations, interactions, participation, and very often these processes of interaction go below the radar. They are not recorded in outputs. And and I'll finish here, because one of the discussions in the PATHOS project yesterday was this problem that PATHOS was looking at impacts in the outputs, like the uptake of the outputs, not actually if things were changing. Well, things are changing in the outcomes when the beneficiaries, when you can show that there is interaction with the beneficiaries, that you can show that the beneficiaries are listening, are participating. Now, this cannot be done with the traditional tools. We don't have ready-made solutions. I am glad to see that already in these 2 days, a number of alternatives are being put on the table, and I look forward to seeing more of this.
Great. Thank you very much. And yes, still lots of work to be done, but a lot of good ideas, I think, that have been put forward during 2 days, and we will go through all the reports and see what other ideas there may be from the reports from the countries. So we have a little bit of time for a couple of questions from the audience. Please go ahead. Just introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Olavo Amaral from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So Brazil is one of the countries that's a blank on the map. I mean, I'm very grateful for you sharing your experience. I'll share mine. So like, I'm not affiliated with government, but I collaborate with them via the Open Government Partnership. We have a goal that is about fostering open science in the country. And I think 10 days before the deadline for submitting this, we got like an email like, guys, please help us fill this in. And I don't know whose fault it was. It was some, I mean, the data coordination, whatever, was vacant for a long time. This person had like taken up a job less than a month before, and I guess it just fell on her lap. And I was, well, so it just like was, I don't know why it didn't get sent, or if it did or wasn't registered, but like it was very, very chaotically filled by 30 people at the same time, and just like putting in their own experiences. And so like, how do you, of course it's not UNESCO's fault, I don't know whose fault it is, but like, how do we avoid this from, like, how can we ensure that like, this is actually being followed on the long term by somebody or by a commission of people rather than just like following somebody's lap? And second thing is like when Rania was showing the numbers, like X% of countries have a policy, how do you know it's the country rather than just like one institution X that like, yeah, we do this and like, we have training for open science, might be like one university out of, I don't know, 100 in the country.
Okay, nice questions. So very quickly, so Brazil, we had a chat with them, and we kind of extended the deadline for Brazil. So we are still waiting for the report to come in. It doesn't, I mean, the deadline is important to a certain extent because we have to make this report to the executive board. But even if it arrives a little bit later, we will still consider it, and it's still a very, very useful exercise. And I think the reason why they're late is precisely because they realized that it was such a hectic process. So from what we have understood, and we've had a couple of discussions with them, they're trying to put things in place a little bit better and have a process that is a little bit less hectic so that they can have data that they can actually be comfortable with sharing with the others as well. So it's coming. They will probably get back to you in one way or another. And it's okay, it's not the only country. We have several other countries that are still doing their reports. Sometimes it's a question of communication. We send it to the ministry, the right person has to get it takes time. And I think, again, this is the first time. We will do better next time. And hopefully, it's not just going to be once every 4 years and we are hectic in getting these reports. In between those 4 years, the idea is that there would be some structures in place that can already start preparing for the reporting for the next year as well. And not for the sake of reporting, for the sake of making open science better in that country. For the policies that we have gathered, we've also asked them to provide PDFs or links to those policies. So eventually we will go through the policies and see exactly what it is, at which level, and then we can adjust a little bit the responses from the countries. But as for the other monitors that depend on surveys from country focal points, some responses are really spot on, and it's exactly what was required. For some others, either there is a misunderstanding. We'll have to go back and forth on some of these things. So, yeah, it's a learning process again for everybody. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I represent the Netherlands. Thank you very much for this extremely insightful session. I have two questions. The first one is about the number of 68 countries that have an STI policy and 28 integrated open science elements. Is that of the 77 that responded, or globally? That's my first question. Secondly is about the sustainability of this. We hear that it's important and there's a big need to cooperate in a sustainable way. What will this cooperation look like, given that when I look around me, I see many other initiatives that exist. Is that the 5 working groups that you told us about? Is that a new platform that will be created? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's out of the 77 countries that have reported, 68 have reported on their national STI strategies, and then within those, it's the 28 that have integrated all of the principles. And again, we have to go through all of those in details to see exactly how this has been done. And with regards to the sustainability, the working groups, the UNESCO, these are the UNESCO open science working groups, which look into different kind of key areas for open science implementation. They have proven to be quite a good way of getting stakeholders together around some of those issues. And I think what everybody really appreciated is that it's open to everybody, including from different regions, different stakeholders. So we really have a variety of voices there. Not always easy to have the discussions, but a very good place to understand what the needs of everybody is. And they have been instrumental in producing the Open Science Toolkit with the different resource materials, the guidance for policy, the guidance for funding, the guidance for capacity building. Now we are working on the guidance on AI, another guidance on intellectual property and open science. So the working groups will definitely stay, but there may be also some other ways in which we can work better. The Republic of Korea has kindly offered to host through KISTI the Open Science Forum next year. We are still trying to see exactly what the modalities will be, but that will definitely, hopefully, be one of the first global fora for open science where we can discuss some of these issues and come up with some new ways of promoting international collaboration and regional collaboration in the terms of open science. So we have a few ideas. We also have a few countries that are interested in working more with UNESCO on open science, and we are very grateful for that. So we definitely see interest, a lot of interest still in open science, and we are hoping that the reporting process will also help us in raising more awareness and pointing to the priorities that are needed for future action. I understand. Any other questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Junji from University of Bath in the UK. I have a question for Professor Huang. I understand you are creating a new journal called Open Science, which is supported by UNESCO. So I want to know your expectations for this new journal and how this would contribute to UNESCO's open science vision. Thank you.
The new established Journal Open Science was endorsed by UNESCO Science Decade. And the journal aims to support the open science recommendation from UNESCO. And we will the scope will cover all pieces outlined in the UNESCO recommendation on open science, such as open access, open data, open infrastructure, open educational resources, open policies. And we welcome the scientists to submit their outputs, using open science tools, open science methods, and such as. And we now established the website of this new established journal. If you have some interest in to cooperate with us, we hope to invite you to as editor or a member of editor board or submit your output to this journal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I did have one last question for all of the panelists. Can I go ahead? Yeah, okay, great. So just one last question and very short answers. based on your experiences, on the discussions that we've had, on the processes that you've had to monitor the recommendation, what would be your recommendation to strengthen the future monitoring efforts? Please.
Thank you very much. In brief, actually, in my perception, to strengthen the future monitoring process, or to strengthen the efforts among countries, we should actually consider the local context. So there is no actually one size that fits all. So from the context of Saudi Arabia, I think there are some actions that could be taken to advance the future monitoring exercise. Briefly, just because of the time, I think Saudi Arabia is in need of a very flexible and adaptable national monitoring framework. Another one is to raise awareness and increasing community participation, leveraging international experiences, create targeted funding system for open science project infrastructure and capacity building, and lastly, to develop a periodical public report that showcase key trends, achievement gaps, and progress in open science, adopt open science. So these are actually the main 5 action that we might actually raise it to our government to consider, so that we can strengthen the future of the monitoring process.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Wang.
Based on China's experience in this round, we recommend the establishment of a regular national open science monitoring workflow guided by UNESCO. Such a framework would enable countries to systematically assess, process, identify gaps, and take timely evidence-based actions to advance open science. This monitoring workflow could include a dedicated national coordination body, a dynamic repository of open science practice cases, ongoing connection of monitoring data and the development of an analytical platform, regular publication of national progress reports, and increased investment in open science. Guided by UNESCO, we propose that future monitoring efforts be based on the results published by UNESCO, with UNESCO identifying key focus areas for the next round of monitoring, including tailored priorities that reflect the diverse context and stages of development of member states. For China, in the future open science monitoring efforts, we aim to promote the establishing of a national level open science coordination center and the development of the Chinese open science policy in support of the global vision of framework of UNESCO's recommendation on open science. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Cécile, de votre côté?
Merci. Alors, merci. Alors, je dirais tout de suite qu'il ne faut plus perdre de temps, voilà, pour la coordination, le suivi des actions à venir et de toutes les recommandations qui ont été collectées, notamment mettre en place un organe de coordination, élaborer le plan d'action, définir les mécanismes de financement des activités, parce que c'est revenu vraiment dans les échanges. Et puis, pour l'Afrique également, nous ouvrir à une collaboration des francophones. Il y a intérêt parce que quand vous regardez un peu les pays qui ont des politiques, les pays francophones sont un peu en retrait. Bon, peut-être c'est la barrière linguistique, on n'a pas fait d'études, mais nous avons proposé depuis Cape Town qu'il y ait un nœud francophone, un regroupement de francophones pour la science ouverte, pour échanger nos expériences, non pas pour nous couper des autres, mais pour être en interaction entre nous, pour pouvoir nous entraider et briser ainsi la barrière linguistique qui existe entre les anglophones et nous. Voilà. Et puis, je pense qu'il faut maintenir la collaboration au niveau national en Côte d'Ivoire avec les instances de l'UNESCO, voilà, qui pourraient vraiment nous apporter beaucoup par rapport aux directives de l'UNESCO, etc. Nous pensons maintenir cette collaboration et puis renforcer les initiatives existantes. Il y a certaines que nous pouvons continuer tranquillement le temps de mettre en place le plan national, le plan d'action national et puis la politique nationale de sciences ouvertes et booster les autres institutions à également avoir leur politique institutionnelle de sciences ouvertes. En tout cas, pour nous, nous avons été très heureuses de contribuer à ce rapport, à cette consultation et nous espérons continuer à être avec toutes les entités de l'UNESCO pour le rayonnement de la science ouverte en Côte d'Ivoire. Je remercie le comité d'organisation. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Cécile. And last, not least, Ismail, 1 minute.
So following from the discussions yesterday as well, I think we are seeing a change in how we understand open science, more from the thinking of it as access to outputs, to thinking of it as meaningful, judicious connections that lead to positive outcomes. So the idea is that the monitoring efforts should follow this shift in how we think, and going from the monitoring of the outputs, whether they're accessible or not, to monitoring of the connections. These often will need to be related to narratives, because connections are processes. And in these narratives, we can discuss which values are actually supported through the science.
Thank you very much. Again, many thanks to the entire panel. I think we really heard a lot from the different countries, from the different regions. For me, it's always really enriching to hear all these different experiences, and I hope it was something that was also useful for the audience.